In downtown Richmond, you'll find street signs that bear some of history's most famous names. On the corner of North 11th and East Broad Street, there's a marker that honors someone you may not have heard of. But she meant an awful lot to those who knew her.
I walk by the street sign every day. I miss her. You know?
Dr. Lindsey Grizzard-Braun was a PhD and nurse practitioner at VCU Health System.
She was extremely smart. She was extremely funny. She loved her job.
Adored by patients and colleagues alike, she had found her calling caring for others.
Lindsey was an advocate because she would speak her mind. If she thought something, she would say it. She just wanted to be there for people and do what she could to make people feel better.
But on July 31st, 2023, the life of this 30-year-old caregiver was cut tragically short.
I took an oath to protect public safety, and the one person I couldn't protect was my daughter.
Just after 2 in the afternoon, Lindsey was pulling out of the driveway of her South Richmond home when she was T-boned by another vehicle.
She had to be cut out of the car. Her husband heard the accident because it was in front of their house and came out and had to watch this.
She survived the initial impact.
They took her to MCV where she worked, where she asked to go, where she started suffering from the whiplash. It was so violent that she started suffering strokes, and they lost her in emergency brain surgery. We lost her.
Lindsey's death sent shockwaves through this close-knit medical community. She would receive a number of tributes. The first, an honor walk in recognition of her decision to be an organ donor.
About 3 days after her accident, they closed down the operating rooms at MCV, and all of her colleagues, her friends, doctors and nurses and staff lined the halls, where we followed behind while we wheeled her to the operating room.
6 months later, Richmond City Council passed a resolution for a permanent memorial.
Without further ado.
Right near the entrance of the hospital, that meant everything to her.
It was incredible. And when you looked around and were like, wow, who can bring this many people into one space just to honor someone for a few minutes?
Since it went up last year, Lindsey's mother, Mindy Applewhite, has made a couple of trips downtown to see her daughter sign, but she says each visit is accompanied by mixed emotions.
Good memories because she's forever looking over her people at MCV that she loved. Sad memories because she should be here.
Police say Tobias McLean was the driver of the car that hit Lindsey. He was going more than 30 miles per hour over the speed limit at the time of the crash. Mindy says he should have never been behind the wheel that day.
He was a violent offender that was on supervision in Richmond for shooting somebody in the back when he was 14 during a drug transaction. After he got out, he was arrested for I believe another reckless driving and 2 distributions of drugs, which were both certified to the grand jury. So he had 2 more pending felonies before he hit her.
Lindsey's mom spent her entire career on the parole and probation side of the criminal justice system, but she feels like it has now turned a blind eye to her family.
I understand how the system works because I worked in it my whole life. And probation officers and parole officers have an obligation to public safety. That should be their number one role. I understand that offenders sometimes deserve second and even third chances, but when you're proven yourself to be violent and disregard the law, it's time for you to come off the street before you victimize somebody else.
McLean ultimately pled guilty to involuntary manslaughter.
We agreed to a plea agreement to keep from having to go to trial and putting our family through listening to all the details of the crime again.
He was sentenced to 10 years behind bars, but 5 of that was suspended. He's scheduled to be released in 2027. Mindy knows she can't do anything to bring Lindsey back, but says her path to healing has driven her to become an advocate, just like her daughter.
What would help me is to help other families not become victims. What would help me is if somebody, the public safety director, the governor, I don't care who, reviewed the policies at the probation offices about the arrest authority that they have and removing violent felons from the streets.
Nearly 2 years since her passing, the pain is still present for Lindsey's loved ones, especially when there is a bittersweet reminder at every turn.
She had a lot of life to live, and she was just getting started, and she should have been able to see that through.